Consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. It looks like Brian is leading us off.
All right, thank you. I'm going to give a brief summary on the first quarter results of 2023. Start out with a consumption comparison. I put 4 years of consumption on here for the first 3 months of the year. You can see that there's quite a bit of variability in January. This is 2019 through 2023. But overall, it pretty much levels out for the first 3 months of the year. Not a whole lot of change between any 1 month or any 1 year. But we are about 3% less consumption at the end of March for the first quarter compared to last year. So again, a lot of it is the billing cycles we talked some about last year, and also just the weather. So we've had unusually dry, but also cold weather. So consumption has been down. The revenue comparison, I have January, February, March of 2022, and then compared to the budget. And then this line is the actual. And again, for the first 3 months, not much variability, but we're trending well. And I put the next 3 months out here too, just to show that for the first 6 months of the year, our overall revenue is relatively stable from 1 month to another. For the first 3 months, we're at $6.9 million in water sales. We're 5% above last year, 4% above on the budget. You can see the biggest increase is in the commercial accounts. Government and agricultural commercial, we're about 6% above last year, 110% of budget. And then resale and irrigation, pretty big decreases percentage-wise on small dollar amounts. So that'll change during the rest of the year. Operating expenses are flat. We're at $3.75 million, the same as last year. 80% of budget, so we're well under budget for the first 3 months. We have 3 decreases on salaries and wages. We're about down 4%. Tech SCADA support projects down 52. That's the largest one. And then this is the offset, admin offset charges to capital projects. We're 8%. This trends with whatever the capital budget is. So on the next slide, you'll see that we're off to a slower start to budget for the capital projects. Repairs and maintenance, a lot of these are just project specific on timing and purchases, and also cost of goods have increased. Professional services, again, it's a large increase, 71%, but small dollars, 25,000 or so, just for the timing of professional services. A lot of this has to do with district-wide training too. So we've had professional services come in, flagging training, lift training, and actually Jay will probably talk about that next, so I won't say any more. Goods and services, we have seen quite a bit of increase here. Again, general increase in goods and services, inflationary, but also just the timing of some of those purchases that we've done. Capital contributions, about $650,000. This is another important revenue source for the district. These are work orders or service orders that we do for others. It's work that we do that we get paid for. System development charges, fees are for hookups into our water system. When you get a new meter, you pay a system development fee, or donated plant. So donated plant has to do with developer projects. A new apartment building, they'll put in the infrastructure, do a tie into our water system, and then turn those over for us to maintain. So a lot of this year, we have more on the, right here on donated plant. A lot of these projects were just done last year. We got all the paperwork done, bill of sales, and we capitalized them. So they're showing up right at the beginning of this year. So these are very sporadic. They come in various times during the year. We budget kind of a set amount, and then we see the variability from one quarter to another. Cash flow summary, we're at $7.7 million for the year, up 7%. Operating expenses are flat. capital expenses, this is where you see we're at less than $1 million for the first 3 months compared to last year. We're at $2.4 million this year. And one of the things that has happened is that from an accounting standpoint, we continue to get invoices all the way through March. All of those expenses that go to 2022 are put back into that. So this is a lot to do with just timing our big capital projects, Scarcella and the transmission line. Their first invoice came in April, so it's not on this $1.5 million. So we'll quickly make up that in the next couple months on the capital side. Debt service, we're paying those projects. We've issued debt and taken out some loans. Income deficit, we're ahead of last year because we haven't spent as much money on capital, and we have $41 million of reserves right now at the bank. So I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So general revenues make up a majority of that, 84%, $35 million. System development fees, again, come in as people hook up into our system, $4.6 million. And then we accrue debt service. The next debt service payment is June 1st. So each month we're putting money aside into a special account so that we can pay our debt service of $2.2 million. We have $38 million invested with the state. The LGIP is the local government investment program. You can see a year ago, back in March, April, we were earning about 0.25%. Obviously, in the last year, rates have gone way up. In the last month, we earned 4.75%. The LGIP is short-term investments. Everything is less than a year. We trend it to the 2-year treasury rate, so it lags behind and catches up, and then will lag behind going down too. Anticipate at least one more increase, though, from the Fed next month. At least one, could be more. But we've earned just over $400,000 in interest for the first 3 months of this year on all that money. Last year, we had about $20,000. So a significant increase, and that's a good thing. Total number of meters, we're at 27,486. Definitely has decreased. We've added 14 meters since the beginning of the year. More normal would be about 20 a month, so less people hooking up. And that's the breakdown of all the different meters we have. And then I'll switch a little bit and talk a little bit about debt. Back in 2019, we had a rate study. We looked at the rate, the cost of service to different groups, and then how much revenue we collected from each of those groups. We restructured our rates a little bit. We created the ag rate. We did away with the capital $2 a month charge. We distributed that charge onto by meter size instead for an equity, so that the larger consumers, the larger meters pay more. Residential pays a little bit less. That's a long-term trend that we're encouraging. But the other thing that came out of that is how much capital projects were forecasted as needed to be done by the district. A lot of these have been talked about in the planning stages, pushed out as far as they could be, but we're getting close to the end of their useful life, and some urgency in some of these. Transmission line was one of them. And so there's about $180 million that was projected out in 2019. This was the original projection that was used for the rate study. And then FCS Group said, how do you want to pay for that? Do you want to take out more debt? Do you want to take it out all up front? Do you want to increase rates, or a combination thereof? And the board commissioners at that time decided that we would do both, try to minimize the amount of debt, take it out in 2 different time periods, and also increase rates 5% for the first 5 years. And the importance of doing that is to show bond issuers that we're serious, that we are going to raise rates, that we will raise rates, and that we can pay the debt service. So that helps us get a better bond terms. So at the original estimate at the end of 2019 was that to pay for that $180 million, we would need between $44 and $53 million of new debt. And so the first thing that happened was that we refinanced with Banner Banks. So we refinanced about $12 million in got an additional $12 million. So we had $25 million with Banner Bank. And we were also very, very successful. Mike Benton applied for a number of different loans, and we got all of them. We didn't expect to do that when we were doing the rate study and the anticipation of the bonds. So we haven't had to go out and issue new bonds. We've received about $37 million of loans. And you can see that all of the terms here and the rates. So the weighted average of all this is 1.82%. Our bonds actually turned out to be the highest at 2.65, which is still good in today's market. At that time, it was the higher. And then, so this is all of the debt that we have. The principal debt is $64.5 million. And it looks like this as far as per year. So we're at $4.6 million. And since most of this debt was issued at the same time, you see the cumulative total, and it goes out to about 2030, 2031. And then we have a small decrease, and then we have another decrease out here. So we layered the debt on. We want nice, constant debt service payments that we can afford. And that's where we are for the debt. I don't anticipate needing any more. We actually are ahead of where we thought. We got a little earlier, and the projects are taking a little bit more time to get to. The building is the next one, which we're hoping to get bid very soon and start this year. And so that money that we have in reserves with the money that we've already borrowed, we use to pay for that project and the other capital projects that are underway this year and next year. So we're in good shape there. And I think that's it. You have any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so looks like next up we have audience comments. If you're in the audience tonight wishing to offer comment, or if you're on Zoom, step to the podium. If you're here, if you're on Zoom, use the raise your hand function. Seeing no one, looks like George, you are up with the manager's report.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. A little bit of an update on some of the meetings we've been having. So looking back, I went to the Cedar Woolley Council meeting on April 12th. Commissioner Hamber was there, presented to the Cedar Woolley Council, and that went well. Tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Mount Vernon City Council doing an update for them. Commissioner Lindquist will be joining me, I think. Last week, there were a couple of community events that Kevin took care of for us, I guess. The Mount Vernon Science Night was on April 20th, and that's where we had staff hosting a booth and running some trivia for PUD prizes. I think that went very well. It was really well attended after not running the Science Night for a few years. And then the Thirst Buster was put back into action at the Tulip Run on Saturday, and that was a big success as well. So Kevin was keeping busy with that stuff. In between those two events on Friday, we hosted Congressman Larson and showed him our Alger waterline relocation project, where he helped secure $2 million in funding for us. So that was good. Then we took him to a Division Street tank and showed him our micro hydro generating unit. So that was good. I think he wanted to do the victory lap on the appropriations he was doing for everybody. So that was good to host him. Coming up, May 11th, is AWDBA Drinking Water Week, and we're going to hold public tours of the treatment plant in Reservoir on that day. And so I think I got these numbers right, Kevin, but there were 30 spots available for the tours, 45 spots available for the tours. And when he sent the email out to everybody to get them to sign up, they filled up in about 3 hours, I think. So popular event. We got a full waiting list, and so that's good to know. A legislative update. So it's in the information section at the end, but I included a couple of pages from the state capital budget. So it's called the compromised budget between the Senate and the House. That came out on Friday, and it was voted on Sunday, but it's still not final. The governor has to sign it, but we got all three of our capital budget requests in that final budget. So that's great. There's $650,000 for waterline relocations in the 10th district. So that's two projects down at the Anderson Road interchange. In the 39th district, we are getting 600,000 for 4 separate projects. And then in the 40th district, we're getting 206,000 for our public meeting room in the new building. So just over $1.4 million. So that's great. That really helps our budget. You know, Brian was talking about that. There's a lot of waterline relocation projects that we had to put in expecting to pay for them ourselves. And now in the last 2 years, we've got, you know, over $3.5 million to help with that funding. So that works out great for our bottom line. And it's nice to know that the legislators are listening to us and working with us and getting that money. So that was really good news. When the budget gets signed from the governor, then we can get more mileage out of that and promote it. And this was brought up earlier before the meeting started, but there was a bill that was passed that really impacts our operations, and that's the heat moratorium bill. And we've been talking about it internally, but it's basically summarized in that we can't disconnect people during a heat advisory by the National Weather Service. So it's not a temperature related event. It's when they issue heat advisories. And if people are already disconnected, we would need to reconnect them at their request. So we've got
their request.
at their request.
Okay.
So there are some things that we need to think about because disconnecting people and then having to go back and reconnect them, it's a big operational expense for us. So we need to think how we're going to manage this. It comes into effect in 90 days. So it's late July, I think, you calculate it out. So we'll be talking about this more, but yeah, we've got some ideas.
So we get to send those invoices to the Department of Health and Human Services.
If you want to sign the bottom of that letter. Yeah,
Okay.
It's funny though, because let's see, how is it? If we have to report back to the Department of Commerce on whoever it is that we do disconnect. So if the system, I think if it's over 2,500 connections and we go through the process of disconnecting and reconnecting people, we need to report on that as well, because they do want to keep track of it. That
So
just
like,
adds an administrative
bill us
burden.
back. Yeah. So, but not so they can pay us back.
No,
No.
it's just to keep track.
How
So
convenient.
it's an interesting bill. It's changed from when they first put it up. It's better now than it was, but it's still, we don't agree with it.
It originally was that you had to connect, not
Had to
wait
connect.
with requests.
Yes.
All shut off accounts had to be
Yeah, I remember
connected.
that.
And there was civil penalties if we didn't do. So that's taken out, but it's still not, it still creates a problem. So we're going to talk about how we'll bring that up again. We come up with something, but yeah, out of anything, that was the one thing impacted us the most. So, let's see. No, that's it.
It's like Jay, you were up.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
A very brief safety and risk update, kind of let you guys know what I've been up to for the last couple of 2 months. And as Brian alluded to, this has probably been something we've been very, very busy doing, is training. We have had what I would call a higher than anticipated and probably higher than what has historically been for having new people arriving at the district. So there has been an extraordinary call to ramp people's competencies up faster than ever before. So we've had to adjust to address that. And so that means a lot of training that we may have been able to put off for a short while, and now we're not able to put it off at all. So what you have here is actually a picture of some of our staff going through first aid training right here in this room. And the count is actually interesting. We have we actually have a training tracking program that we use, and that's where those numbers came from. And they actually shocked me a little bit when I looked at them. Didn't realize that we were putting that many hours into it, but this is what we have so far for this year. So if you extrapolate that out for 4 quarters in the year, it's kind of astounding when you think about it. So that is that. Lots of it. A lot of training. We are still working on two different safety improvement programs. The one I'm talking about here is the request for qualifications. And this is looking at seismic resilience retrofitting for our clear wells up at the Judy Reservoir. Initially, we were looking at having a design for one clear well. And then the question was raised, why are we not looking at the other two that are right next to it? Especially when the construction and the area have a lot of influence over the one clear well. So that made a lot of sense. So we've actually expanded that initial scope to include all three of the clear wells. And right now we're working internally to figure out how we're going to address that and manage the project going forward. So this is going quite well, and we're excited about the start for this. So as that develops, we'll continue to keep the board apprised of how that looks going forward. It's a very exciting program. And the whole aim of it is to make our infrastructure as resilient to natural and man-made disasters as possible. And so this is a very important project, I think. So I just want to keep you apprised of that. Have not done a lot of it, procedure and policy writing this year so far. We have promulgated one SP&P, a safety practice and procedure, and that's for our training and occupational health screening program that addresses safety and occupational health needs and the base and core competencies for all of our employees here at the district. It gives us a backbone to look at for baseline requirements for all of our people, and helps us develop the safety competencies of our people in a very measured and scaled way, something that we can sustain for a long period of time. So it gives us something to look at. Safety committee is the one who ultimately helps me determine which internal practices and procedures we develop next. And at our next meeting, we're going to be talking about the next one, likely going to be something centered around trenching excavation safety. That's become a hot button topic with labor and industries, and there's some new language coming out from labor and industries, and we're going to try to get ahead of it. So that's probably going to be our next effort. We've been very busy acting as a stakeholder with L&I. L&I has been very, very busy. They have been working on new language for heat stress. They've been working on, as I mentioned, trenching and work planning rules. Process safety management, which involves highly hazardous chemicals, is also another one where they're talking about rules expansion, and we've been busy participating in that. I have been asked to be a chair at large for the Water Wastewater Agency Response Network, otherwise known as WAWARN, representing two different regions, the Northwest region, which is Whatcom, Skagit, Island, Snohomish, King, and Pierce County. So I'll have another chair that'll help me actually coordinate WAWARN functions. That includes web development, reaching out to private and also public utilities and other municipalities. The whole point of the program is it's a mutual aid network that has no obligations or strings attached to it. In other words, we can put a WAWARN email out to all member agencies saying we need a particular piece of part or something to respond to something that's an urgent or emergent need for our agency. And it's just another way to network and broadcast those needs. So it's a good tool, and it's widely used in Washington State. So we want to try to foster that. Our safety department has also been involved and asked to be part of the Pierce College, Edmonds Community College, and Central Washington Safety and Environmental Health Curriculum Committee. And the point of that program is to help develop up and coming safety and environmental health officers that are coming up through the post-secondary education system in the state, and to try to get the curriculums in line with each other, and also to address the realities of the different types of industries that need safety and environmental health officers on them. Some of these come from within the trade, some of them come directly out of schools. But as you can tell, when we have community colleges and smaller colleges involved, we're also bringing people with field experience into the fold too. So this is an interesting opportunity for us to actually shape what our safety officers are learning when they're in school. Successfully petitioned for and got accepted DOH Waterworks certifications for Board of Certified Safety Professional CEU acceptance, which is a huge deal. So basically, people like myself, a certified safety professional, we have a 5-year periodicity to become recertified. And it can be very difficult and challenging to get CEUs if you're in what is considered to be a niche industry. And utility right now for the board is considered to be a niche industry. And so working to try to expand this out to where electrical and water utility safety officers have an avenue to actually gain some CEU experience from the industries they're in. So this is a good retention and also recruitment tool as well. So very happy about that. And also more of a less official thing that we've done. My counterparts at some of our public municipal agencies in Skagit and Whatcom County have been getting together every couple months and actually sharing commonalities with each other, common objectives, common obstacles, and trying to think of groupthink our way through some of those things. That's been very effective too. So I've been very busy networking. Real quick snapshot of our risk activity over the last 3 months since January. This is it. Claims payable, 5 claims for $27,000. We've been very successful in making sure that we're not liable for most of these. 2 were paid for a grand total of $1,120. We flatly denied 1 claim, and 2 of the claimants actually settled for nothing for other arrangements. 1 was a utility strike. The other one was a person who had damage to her personal appliances in her home due to a valving issue with our system. It was our liability, but ultimately at the end of the day, they decided that they didn't want to actually file a claim. So we've been very good with that. So 96% liability avoidance. And if for claims receivable, that's when other people have damaged our things. We've had 2 claims for that much, and we've got them settled for exactly what they were worth. So 100% recovery so far this year. So I'm very happy with that. Probably the coolest small safety thing that we've done in the last 2-3 months that we actually have a fork stuck in and is done is the new chain hoist up at the water treatment plant. I think we all remember what happened late last year and with the old wire rope hoist that was up there. This is considered to be a vast improvement and what used to be one of the weaker links in our process up there. So we're very thrilled with this, and just wanted to, share something other than written stuff and show you a picture of something that we've accomplished. So there you go. Probably one of the cooler things. And that is the sum of my presentation for this evening, unless you have any questions.
No, well, Jay, as people are coming into the organization, do you feel like that it just not every organization has the same approach to or culture for safety? What's been kind of the feel as far as
thinking, wow, this is a lot more focus, or hey, this is like what I came out of, or what's your sense? It's we have I think a robust culture here, and I think it existed long before this position was created.
Here. And so that's been very successful. And I think when we get people that are new to this place and they walk in and they see the size of our organization and the fairly narrow scope of the services we provide our community, and I think they're surprised at how robust and how thick that culture is. And it really does translate, I think, in it. And it's easy, makes my job a lot easier. Doesn't mean I don't have a lot to do, but it definitely makes that part easier. The buy-in is easy.
Great, yeah, because the culture trumps policy, or every day of the week. So that's important. So
great,
kudos on that.
I have a couple of questions too, as far as the number of training sessions. So you said that there's, first aid and CPR. Obviously, most of the time, those are external contracted sources coming in. Forklift, is that an in-house? Are we having anyone certified in-house or?
No, unfortunately, that's a good question, Commissioner. We've had that in the past. It is exceptionally difficult to maintain it. And I have a mantra, and I think it spills into a lot of things we do here at the district. It's do a few things very well instead of trying to do everything all at once. And I think it's easier and better for our people to have the very best people come in and train our folks. And it takes some time to figure out who that might be. But, and we want something that we can repeat over and over and over again and have it be successful. And for now, I think that's the best way going forward. So I would like to have in-house stuff in some things. Technical skills like confined space entry, lockout, tagout, control of hazardous energy, those things, we're going to keep those in-house. But, when it's stuff that can be trained like that, I think it's the best mix for now. But it's a good question. Thank you.
And then another question too, are you finding that the meetings with, your counterparts in other departments, I mean, I find this when I go talk to other wastewater supervisors, things that I've searched and Googled and called representatives for, that you gain so much more from just those hour-long conversations with your counterparts than.
I would agree. We surprise each other by, we'll have somebody bring a topic to the meeting and we'll be like, well, we've already figured that out a long time ago. Here's the answer. And it does. And sometimes you just have to figure out a way to shoehorn it into the organization you're in, or scale it down. In our case, in a lot of cases, that's what we end up doing, is scaling it down. And it does help a lot. And it also helps you keep perspective. So,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you.
questions. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time this
Jay.
evening.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, looks like we are on to new business. And Mike, are you presenting?
Yeah, we talked about last week. We ran some numbers and talked with Brian on the purchase of the Vector truck and the moving ahead with the excavator, and with the prices that we're going to save in. There's going to be a price adjustment for the excavator and the vac truck both in the next few months of about 4%. Next year's 13% on the Vector, January 1st, and we're getting a trade-in of $60,000 on the old Vector. They'll take off the sales price of it. So the money will save in sales tax on the reduced amount, plus the reduction of what we would have spent next year waiting another several months for the first of the year to come around. We're looking at potentially saving $60,000 to $70,000 by doing it now rather than waiting until next year. So I'm asking to see if we can move forward with amendment to the budget to make those purchases now rather than next year.
I have a quick question on the Caterpillar excavator. So is that something that was already determined for a future year being budgeted for? Or is this something that we're now finding that it would save us a lot more time and energy and money to have one in-house than rely on external sources for?
Yeah, a few things have changed over the years. Part of it being, I can't remember if I mentioned it last week or not, but like laying pipe with our boom truck now with the regulations and boom truck regulations, having to have our outriggers all the way out. We can't get close enough to the ditch. So we're moving more to laying it with a excavator and looking at the used market on machinery. We have an existing excavator that I think I'm hoping to sell for what we paid for it 5 years ago. The market's really good on that. So we're going to try and recoup a good half of the, third to a half of the money from the old excavator to put towards the next one, which will do everything the old one did, plus allow us to lay pipe and do more excavation and run the mower and everything else that we have an identical machine that does now. So yeah, it's going to gain a lot of versatility and hopefully get some payback out of the existing one that we had that we got such a good price on.
I think the sticker shock for me is the original 500,000 that was budgeted for the hydro excavator. So the back truck is the difference of what we're going to get back from our current, the John Deere Mini, canceling the directional drill. I mean, it just speaks volumes to the immensity of inflation right now, especially with equipment. So,
yeah, and talking with the Caterpillar dealer, he said January 1st, they told the salespeople that January 1st it's going to go up 13%. I think like every year, these things are going to be going up 10%. That's just the way it is. So if we, like I say, moving now, I think we'll avoid that price that we would have paid either next year or the year after. And you're talking 10 or 20% on 225,000. So it hurts a little bit to move it forward and buy it now, but it's kind of an inevitable purchase, and we can get some money back out of, like I said, the used market is really good on the existing machine we have. So I just kind of timing wise, I think it all kind of came together after talking to a couple of vendors that it made more sense to try and move these things forward now and save us spending a lot, but at the same time, we're saving some by doing what we're doing now.
And then timeline wise, so are we expected, I would assume the back truck's probably not going to get here till next year, beginning of next year sometime.
Well, that's the other thing. The Vector manufacturer bought 20 cabs and chassis a couple of years ago. So they're sitting on cabs and chassis now. So by moving forward now, there's like a July build, an October build, and a January 1st build, which they're just building their rental trucks out of. They build these trucks anyway, because they put them on, they rent them out, and they take them on demonstrations anyway. So what we're going to try and do is if there isn't already a build spec made for the June or the October one, because maybe we can slip our truck in there. There's a couple of things we're not getting put on what their standard model is. So if we can like interrupt one of those, they can maybe put one of those cabin chassis in there and make ours and get it to us sooner. And again, that'll get ours on the road quicker and get ours that's being held for trade-in, get it back to them sooner. So we're not using it for 9 months, potentially have another breakdown. So trying to keep those windows short and turn things over. So yeah, to answer your question, they have cabs and chassis in hand. So we could potentially get one June or October build, or at the latest January 1st. And then after they get the order, 16, 18 weeks. I don't think they were that huge because they already had the cabin chassis. So lead time is pretty good on those. The Caterpillar is different. That's someone got to order. There's none in stock in the nation. They're building them as, and then selling them kind of as is. So there again, they'll hold the price for now, but
It's likely it could be into 24 before we see it here.
yeah, late 23. If we were to order a cat now, the Vactor is kind of the toss up. But biggest thing going for the Vactor is they already have the cabin chassis. So that's a huge leap ahead of us waiting and specifying one and then going to a cabin chassis manufacturer and speccing that out, and then ordering one and waiting who knows how long before we get one, like our service truck now. So good move on Vactor's part. This can benefit us as well. Just kind of moving things ahead as well. So any more
Is there a motion?
questions?
But I move that we amend the 2023 budget to purchase a 2023 TrueVac Hydrovac excavator and a Caterpillar 309 excavator.
My second.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that amends the 2023 budget.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. And last but not least on our new business agenda, the agreements to terminate the agreement between the city of Mount Vernon and Skagit PD to terminate leases on our Playfields.
Yes. So after many months of negotiation and valuation of options and work, Sam's been working hard on this for months. We have an agreement with the city of Mount Vernon regarding our Playfields. And so the agreement allows us to terminate the existing lease on our Playfields. We get a 15-year easement for our Sky Ridge tank in exchange for a new water service at one of their parks and compensation to mitigate the impacts of loss of the fields. So this went to the city of Mount Vernon and passed their council. And this allows us to move forward with our permits. And while this is done, the Playfield lease terminates August 1st. With our schedule on the building, that doesn't, I don't think that should hang us up at all. We've got to go to bid hopefully in June probably. And so I don't think we'd get a contractor trying to get in there sooner than August 1st anyway. So I'm recommending that we approve this agreement, allow me to sign it, and then we'll get it back to the city and get it all executed.
Okay, any questions of George on this? You're looking for a motion?
Well, I move that we authorize the general manager to execute the agreement with the city of Mount Vernon to terminate the existing leases at PUD Playfields.
My second.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, that agreement will be amended.
Thanks, Pete, for all your work on that.
So we've got a couple items in there, recent news articles, I think the one from the engineering magazine. And then monthly budget status, usual Judy Reservoir data report. And then the state's capital budget summary there with the good news. Any commissioner comments? All right. So with that, we will recess into an executive session per RCW 40.30.110 for matters relating to agency enforcement action, Executive session is expected to last 30 minutes. We'll recess at 5:10
Reconvene at 5:40.
and reconvene at 5:40.